Welcome, guys. So today's topic that we're going to be talking about is one of my favorite topics because it is such a simple thing that you can do that can give you such a hugely impactful benefit for your health with very little effort. And I think that after you listen to this presentation, you'll agree with me how and perhaps learn a few things to understand how important it really is. So, as I just alluded to, it's a super impactful habit that you can do. It's really just, for most people, it's really just that you forget to do it. We all live in a place where we have running water, a tap. We don't have to go, we're not living in an African country or somewhere third world country where we have to track to get clean drinking water. We have it abundantly available at our fingertips. We've just got to remember to do it. And I think that when you learn some of the key things of why it is so important, it might make you really, prioritize it and bump it up your priority list. So the influences that water and being well hydrated in your body. So if we think about the body is it's a holistic system. It's a system of systems that all work together. I like to think of it like, if you may imagine like an orchestra, and if all of the instruments, all the musicians are playing at the right time and the right pitch and using their instrument appropriately, then we get beautiful music. And it's the same as the body. But when someone's not doing their job, or someone's out of tune, someone misses a tone, then same as the systems in the body, if one of the systems isn't working, it affects all of the systems. And hydration is actually really, really important to many of our bodily systems. Everywhere from our circulatory system, our heart, our digestion, our immune system, our brain function, our energy levels, so many different things. It is hugely, hugely impactful, and we're going to cover some of these things to really highlight some clear examples of why it is so important. So digestion. Water helps digestion in a number of ways. So think of it like this. If you look at the picture here where we've got the intestines, when you eat food, now if your body is very dehydrated and you're eating food, what your body will do is it will try and, so imagine you've sort of you've eaten your food and that chewed up food is passing through your digestive tract, through your intestines. Your body will try and squeeze every last little drop of water out of that food if you're not getting enough water from other sources. And what happens is you end up with hard matter that's very dehydrated that doesn't pass very easily through the intestines. So it tends to create constipation. It gets stagnant. And if you think about when we think about stagnation, like imagine a body of water. So when you have like a river or like a stream and waterfall flowing from the top of a mountain, you've got that crystal clear, beautiful water. But when you have stagnation, so when water pools in a certain area, it builds up like mold and fungi and stuff like that. So it's similar to the body that with our fecal material that passes through the digestive tract, if there's an optimal time for that chewed up food to pass through. So if it goes too quickly and we have diarrhea, then our body doesn't have a chance to absorb the nutrients effectively. But if it takes too long, then what happens is it creates stagnation. And when we have stagnation, then potentially bacteria, pathogens are able to multiply. So unfriendly bacteria can feed off that. Toxins can accumulate. So there's like a bit of a Goldilocks of how long it should take for that food to pass through our digestive tract. So being constipated is not a good thing, not good for our microbiome, which in later episodes we're going to talk about and go into detail on. But water content being dehydrated can have a big effect on being constipated. And it affects detoxification because if we can't effectively pass those, especially with water, if you have plenty of water, you're able to urinate out and sweat a lot of toxins. So if you're not, then you can't. Weight and metabolism. So our weight is dictated by our metabolic rate significantly. And our metabolic rate, when we're dehydrated, becomes very sluggish. So it slows, which is not optimal if you're trying to maintain good energy levels and also maintain a healthy weight. The body can often confuse hunger and thirst. So quite often when the body is thirsty, you get the sensation of being hungry. So sometimes people will eat in place of being hydration and the thirst signals. When you are very well hydrated and are drinking plenty of water, you tend to eat less because you're filling your belly up with water at times throughout the day. When it's empty all the time, then you're constantly craving something to fill it. I know that when I fast in the mornings, personally, one of the best things to stop myself even thinking about food, if I'm trying to extend my morning out, maybe have my first meal at lunch or 11 or something like that, is to drink water. It's a great opportunity to get extra water in at that time because it fills your belly and you don't feel like food. Now, an interesting thing is that processed foods generally tend to be drier. And more water-rich foods tend to be more whole, natural foods, vegetables, fruits, and things like that. So that's an interesting thing. Like, obviously, we're trying to eat more whole foods anyway. So naturally, we'll get more water-rich foods into our diet as opposed to the processed foods. But that's another reason that processed foods are not great for your health and can lead to constipation. Now, a lot of people have different drivers of what motivates them to take action. So, maybe for you, it is your skin. So when we're, and your appearance. So when we are dehydrated, we end up like a prune, dry and wrinkly. Think of, what's a prune? Like a plum that's, soft and supple. So it's very similar to your skin. When you're dehydrated, you end up with wrinkles and drier skin. Bit of a no-brainer. But, that's another good reason to make sure that you maintain good hydration levels. Water and hydration is very important for body temperature regulation and detoxification, as we mentioned before. So when we're talking about regulating our body temperature, sweating is a main pathway that we'll use for temperature regulation. So if you think of like when you're hot, the surface of your blood vessels come to the surface, your veins might pop out, and it's sort of bringing your core heat to the surface so that it can release that heat. And one of the ways that it does it, that sort of speeds up the process, is when you sweat, because you get water on the surface of your skin, and then the heat, it's almost like a kettle. It's like you're boiling the water, and then the water, so the heat from your skin will heat up the water and turn it into a gas, so steam, and release that heat energy away from your body. Also, sweat is also really important for detoxification. So it's one of the ways that we can get toxins out of our body. That's why people do saunas and things like that. So again, if we're dehydrated, our body's not gonna waste water on sweating. It's gonna be very conservative and rationing our water. So that will affect our ability to detox and also affect our ability to regulate our temperature, which is, if you're a female, going through the change of life, it's, body temperature regulation can be a big thing. It affects sleep. The hot flashes and that can be embarrassing for some people. and it can affect your life in different ways. So definitely having lots of water is quite important. As I mentioned, the detox through sweat. Also, we detox through our urine and our feces. So again, if we have plenty of water and you're able to urinate sufficiently, it's another means that your body can get rid of toxins. And sometimes those toxins can be, things from our environment. And look, if you think about it, there's always been toxins to some degree, but in today's day and age, compared to thousands of years ago, when our bodies evolved, we have so many more toxins in our environment. Our cars off-gassing, carpet off-gases. We have chemicals in air fresheners. I won't even list it. There's too many things to mention. And, a lot of them have, links to health disorders, including cancers and autoimmune diseases, all sorts of different things. But, the key takeaway is that our body's always trying to detoxify things that are toxic to us. They want to get it out of us. Body wants to get rid of those things. So if we can have plenty of hydration in our body, it's going to just allow our body to use one of those mechanisms. And there's a number of different mechanisms that our body can detox, but the sweat and urine is a big one. So definitely worth being hydrated for that. And even hormones. So your own hormones, your body has to, what will happen is when you have an extra load of toxins, and say if you're not very well hydrated, your body's already struggling to get rid of those toxins out of your system, your own hormones, hormones are like, I guess it's, if you think of it like they're, like chemical messages for one part of your body to communicate to another part of your body. So when once that message has been sent and it's no longer necessary, your body needs to detox it and get rid of it. But what will happen if you have lots of toxins and you're dehydrated and your body's sort of stacking up those toxins and it can't get rid of it, it will normally preferentially put those to the front of the queue. And your own hormones, which is something that you produce yourself, your body won't see that as harmful, so it will put that to the back of the line. And as you can imagine, if you're not able to get through the entire line, then that can lead to hormones recirculating into your system and causing hormonal imbalances, and that can manifest in lots of different symptoms within the body. The heart and circulatory system are affected by hydration. I read a very interesting book many, many years ago, I think 20 years ago. It was called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And in this doctor, I believe he was in the Middle East, and he was sort of didn't have a lot of resources at his hands, and so he was always treating people with water and getting their hydration levels up before he went to medications. And he found that he was able to solve a lot of, or relieve a lot of symptoms that people were having for lots of different things just by getting them well hydrated. And one of the key things he found was high blood pressure. And the way he describes it in the book is that, imagine your blood. The biggest component of your blood is the plasma, which is like the water content. So when you are very dehydrated, that water content is less. The volume is less. You have less liters of blood in your water. And as you can imagine, if you imagine like a glass of cordial that's poured really strong with lots of cordial, then it's going to be maybe a way to understand it is if we put 10 mils of cordial with a litre of water compared to 10 mils of cordial with half a litre of water. So when we've got less water concentration, it's going to have it's going to be like a stickier sort of more viscous sort of fluid. And what happens is, because the body has less volume of water, as he explained, the blood vessels will wrap around that smaller content. So what happens is, if you've ever tried to, say, drink a smoothie through a really thin straw compared to a really thick straw, it's a lot harder. You've got to suck a lot harder. Or, if you imagine blowing the opposite way, so pumping, it's harder to push something through a smaller passageway than it is through a bigger passageway. So if you've got less blood volume, your blood vessels are constricted around that, then the heart has to pump a lot harder, and the pressure is a lot higher. So hence the blood pressure will go up and the heart has to work much, much harder. So that's another consideration that I thought that was really impactful to my understanding when I learned that. Joint cushions. So water helps to hydrate. So if you think about your joints are just an articulation between two bones. In between those bones, obviously our bones, if they had nothing in between that, they just rub and cause friction and wear and tear and that sort of thing. So we do have structures that line in between our bones, which are sort of like cushions. And hydration is massively important to having some space between the bones and hydration in those tissues. So often you might, a good example to sort of understand this is, as people get older, they tend to get shorter. And it's a number of factors, but a lot of the time it can be from their spine. The space between each of their vertebral bones is getting smaller because they're losing hydration in those discs. Obviously, their posture and different things can affect it as well, but that is a big, big factor. So being well hydrated can actually relieve stress on your joints. So if you're having some joint pains, it's a good, simple, easy, free fix, well, not fix, but way that you might find some improvement. Electrolyte balance. So when we don't have adequate hydration in our cells on a cellular level, then it puts out the whack of the balance of electrolytes, and that can affect the muscle function and even your strength of your muscles, and it can lead to cramps. So often cramps can be from electrolyte imbalances and can be from just dehydration in general. Energy. So who doesn't want more energy? We all want energy. Energy is the currency of life. Without energy, we can't achieve anything. We can't do anything, and life sucks. It's not fun having really low energy. So water has an effect on energy. It improves your energy, and if you're dehydrated, it will lead you to being very sluggish, lethargic. As we mentioned before, it lowers your metabolism. So if you're feeling low on energy, think about drinking some more water and pay a little bit of attention to if you can notice a difference in your body. I guarantee you probably will. And in all honesty, the biggest problem that most people have with water, as I said at the start of the presentation, is just remembering to drink. We've all got it abundantly available to us. We've just got to, we get distracted with lots of different things in our everyday life. So I want to give you some tips. So 5 tips to help you drink more water, and the first one is to map out your daily water intake. For an example, I'll give you an example of how I normally do it. So I like to set my day up so that I start very early with my water. Most of my water is before lunchtime, majority of my water. So I like to have my first bottle of water finished within 5 to 10 minutes of waking. Then, so I sort of have that as like a little mini goal in my head each day. That's a habit that I have. Then my second one, I normally do a workout, I'll do a bit of work, and I try and finish another one before I have my first meal. So I'm already because I personally find it hard to drink water once I've eaten a meal. I slow down with my water intake from there. So that's why I try and stack it. I try and do 3 bottles generally as a minimum. So I'm already have done 2 before I've even eaten. And then for the rest of the day till before dinner, I try and do 1 more bottle. And then I might just sort of sip away after dinner. Try not to have too much towards night. And that's my little personal plan. But I suggest that you come up with your own personal plan that suits you. As I said, drinking as much as possible. So number two, but upon rising gets you ahead of the game. I know I've already mentioned it to you guys, but I'm going to keep banging on this because it is a game changer. When I started doing it, it made a massive, massive difference to me. You might like to use a reminder app. If, at the start, you don't have to do it forever, but maybe at the start, just to get in the habit, just to give you a little trigger. There's free apps that you can get that will just put like a little notification on the screen every time you touch your screen, or you can put little reminders where they have like a little alarm or something like that. It's such an important thing that if you're finding you're just not doing it, I would look into one of those little app reminders or just set an alarm on your phone. Keep a water bottle with you at all times. My water bottle goes with me everywhere I go. If I don't have my water bottle with me, sometimes I do gardening or stuff like that on the weekends, and I'll leave my water bottle inside, and maybe I'm out for half a day or a full day. I don't drink a sip of water, and I forget. And that's from someone that is very habitual about drinking their water. So having that bottle near you, close, is a good reminder. And if it's in arm's reach, you're much more likely to have it. If you struggle, maybe get a bigger water bottle so you don't have to, refill it as many times, and you just sort of focus on, all right, but I knock that one and a half, or whatever it works out to be. Some people like to draw lines. You can even buy water bottles that have little measurements on them, so it'll have like a line that's say halfway by 11 a.m., all the way by 12 p.m., whatever. If that helps you, then by all means do it. You can write it on the bottle yourself if you like to, but different strokes for different folks. This is what I do. I like to fill up my water bottle at night. So this is what I do. This is my routine every night. I fill up my water bottle. When I go to bed, I'll have a few sips throughout the night. And then the aim is to finish the rest of the bottle by the time, within 5 to 10 minutes. And that really gets me on a good path. Habit stacking, you might like to habit stack. So habit stacking is just, it's not even a habit stack. It's more of a trigger. So you might like to just get into the habit of, before you go for a walk in the morning, you try and have X amount done. Or, when you get back from your walk, or while you're doing your workout, you try and sip away while you're doing it, or, whatever trigger you have, to try and stack it so that's like a reminder to have it. Some people I know that they fill up 8 glasses of water and just put it on their kitchen bench top, especially if you work from home, and then they just go one by one and they get a little bit of a visual representation that really helps them to stay on track. And really, when it comes to water bottles, just find one that you like, in all honesty. Some people like to drink out of glass. They don't like water bottles. Some people like to have a screw-off lid, so it's got a wide mouth. Some people like to have a water bottle that's got a straw. Whatever suits you, just do what works for you at the end of the day. And become intuitive. We want to become intuitive with our body in general. So hydration is no different. I know that myself, like I have little cues that I know that I'm dehydrated. I start to get a little bit of a headache, start to get a little bit foggy in the mind, start to feel a little bit lethargic, and I know that's a trigger. I'm like, oh, I haven't drank any water. And, that's just something that a pattern that I've picked up in my own body. Some other things, I really like things like this where you can check your urine color. There's a little chart here that you can see which shows you, this is a chart that we used to have at my old jiu-jitsu club, and they actually had it on the toilet, in the bathroom near the toilet, so you could actually see it when you were going to the toilet. And it was a good little reminder, so the lighter color is, hydrated, mildly hydrated, dehydrated. There's different factors. Sometimes what you eat can have effect on it being darker. So you're not always dehydrated if it's darker. Another factor to take into consideration is the actual amount of fluid that you pass. So if you've eaten something, like beetroot and stuff like that can change the color of your urine, or lots of protein, tuna, stuff like that can make it darker. But then you've got a big volume, then it's still an indication. Oh, maybe I'm not dehydrated because I did have a big volume that I passed, but it was that color. So you got to sort of put a few, you got to be a little bit of a detective and put a few of these things together. Even being aware of outside temperature. The outside temperature can affect, how much you need to drink. If it's winter, you probably don't need to drink quite as much. I normally say 2.5 liters is a bare minimum, and then you might have more in summer. So if your activity levels a lot, you're out in the sun a lot, if you're sweating, if I have a sauna, I try and do an extra whole water bottle on top of my normal water, because I'm doing something that's going to make me sweat and lose a lot more water. Even another thing is be aware of the types of foods that you're eating. As we mentioned before, there's, things like, say, cucumber, watermelon, soups have a lot more water content. So they're going to affect your hydration levels. If we don't have foods like that, then, we're not going to be as well hydrated. Now, one of the things, a common feedback that I often get is once people start drinking more water, they start peeing a lot more. And, some people get frustrated by that, but I like to reframe it in a positive way, in that, think of it like this. And this is something that I listened to this professor on a podcast explain that, and I was like, that's a good point of view. What he mentioned was that if you feel that there's two reasons that you can start to pee a lot more once you start drinking water. The first reason is that your body's just not used to that much water, and it's used to being very conservative and rationing that water from one system to another and sort of being very sparing with it. And all of a sudden it's getting this extra water that feels like it doesn't need to use. So it just expels it and gets rid of it. The other reason is that sometimes, as we mentioned before, with your detoxification pathways, often being dehydrated will stop you from being able to effectively eliminate a lot of toxins out of your body. So sometimes those toxins can accumulate in your system. And when you start drinking more water, it's almost like a bit of a flushing effect. Your body says, oh, great, we can start to flush the kidneys out. We can start to, remove all these toxins. So it's actually a really positive thing. And I like to think of it in that term. So if you do feel like you're peeing all the time, just think of it like, yes, my body is getting healthier. I'm getting rid of things that shouldn't be in there. And, also just realize that your body will adjust. It will adjust over time. So yeah, you'll be peeing a lot at the start, but once your body realizes, oh, okay, I'm going to get this plentiful supply of water all the time now, I don't have to ration anymore. So now I can be a little bit more, liberal with how I use my body within my different systems. So your body will adjust. Don't think it will last forever. Just be patient. As we touched on, try drink more in the mornings as opposed to the evenings. So that's obviously going to, most people that get frustrated the most about having to pee all the time, it's when it's waking them up during the night. So as I mentioned, I like to try and have all my water done by dinner and then just sip away for the rest of the day. If you feel like you need a little bit more after dinner. And yeah, have a cutoff time, as I just mentioned. So some tips for good digestion. So digestion is super important for health, because at the end of the day, it's not only what we eat, it's whether we can digest and assimilate the nutrients from that food. We need to be able to break it down and absorb it. So when a great tip that Dr. Batman-Gielich, in that book I mentioned before, Your Body's Many Cries for Water, he recommended was to drink 2 tall glasses of water 15 to 30 minutes before every meal. And that will really help with digestion. It helps with, I can't even remember all the, it's the science that he went into, but it helps with your digestive enzymes. And it also helps to, lubricate everything so food can slide through more easily. But also it stops you from eating as much as well, because you sort of fill the belly up a little bit. And it stops you from overeating because, we're not worried about eating if we're eating the right foods, but we don't want to overconsume. And I wouldn't recommend to eat with your meals. So eat while you're eating food. Drink while you're eating food. Because it can dilute your digestive enzymes. So if you think about like those acids being watered down, they're not going to be able to as effectively break your food down into small little particles so that your body can easily absorb it. Yeah, so we mentioned those things already. Tea and coffee. This is another common question that I get. And so, look, tea and coffee are diuretics. They generally cause you to urinate a larger volume of fluid than you take in from the drink. So if you're really dehydrated, that might not happen because your body's just not going to let go of anything because it can't afford to. But for most people, I wouldn't count that as fluid. I definitely wouldn't count it. And I'd probably even count it, maybe negative. But infused teas, berry teas, herbal teas are fantastic. I include those as water intake. So that's fine. Be careful with the berry teas because I've seen some of them at the supermarket and they've got all artificial colorings and dyes and sweeteners and things like that. So not stuff that we want to put in our body. We're just giving our body more toxins to have to detoxify. Some people like to do like, lemon juice in hot water, apple cider vinegar in water, things like that. Again, the water content's included. We count it. Soda or tonic water, yeah, look, you can include it, but try not to have all your water as that. Try and have just some natural water as well, some still water. These are some ideas just to give you a little bit of a visual representation. If you're struggling to get water down and you find water just too plain because you're unaccustomed to having it, you can infuse it. You can drop a few berries in overnight in a bottle, leave it in the fridge, some mint, some even squeeze of lemon or lime. Some people like to do celery. Just look it up online. There's 1,000,001 different ways that you can do this. And they can just give it a slight little tinge of a flavor, which can make it more palatable for a lot of people that aren't used to it. Filtered or not filtered. So I am a big proponent of filtering your water. Now, if you think about it, when you think about the amount of water your household uses, right? So your household, if we think about the percentage of water that gets used in your household in one day, showers, the washing machine, your dishwasher, washing dishes, washing hands, all of those things, watering the garden, all of those things compared to how much your family would actually drink, who knows, maybe it's 2 or 3% of the water that comes into your house would be drank. The rest of it would be consumed in all those other ways. So it doesn't really make sense for that water to be full drinking quality. So what you need to do is, for that small little percentage of water that you're going to consume in that way, filter out the chemicals. So we have chemicals added to our water. Chemicals like fluoride, chlorine, other chemicals. A lot of these chemicals are added to the water to kill pathogens. So, if you've ever been to a country like Bali or Thailand or something like that, and you don't drink the water there, well, us Westerners don't, because you get like Bali belly, they call it, because they've got all pathogens and things that we aren't used to. They're all right because they're used to it, but so that's why they put these chemicals in to kill all that stuff. And it's not a bad thing because we don't want to get sick, but we need to get rid of these chemicals because chlorine, as an example, it kills bugs, right? But also, when you drink it, it kills your healthy gut microbiome as well. And you know, these chemicals have lots of other factors in the body. So you want to be drinking clean water. So I recommend to filter your water. You don't have to you can get filters for thousands of dollars. You can get filters for, you know, maybe 50, 60 bucks or something, like a Brita, reverse osmosis, you know, one from the supermarket. That's fine. You know, any filter is going to be better than no filter. Water bottles. This may seem like a strange topic to cover, but it is extremely important. So plastic is, I don't recommend to drink out of plastic. And I haven't drank out of plastic bottle. You know, obviously from time to time I have to, but 99% of the water that I drink is out of either glass or stainless steel. And what you'll find is when you do that for a number of you know, weeks, months, or years, you go back to drinking water out of plastic, and all you can taste is the plastic. Plastic leaches chemicals into the water. So, and these chemicals are named xenoestrogens. So what that means is they mimic estrogen in the body. So they can have a hormonal effect in your body. They can dysregulate your hormonal balance. You know, which, like we were talking before, you know, when we talked about like the orchestra of the music, you know, when we're mixing up the messages that are getting sent from one part of the body to another, we're not going to get beautiful music. Our body's not going to function the way it's meant to function, the way that nature intended. So I definitely recommend to avoid plastic. Glass is inert, it doesn't transfer anything, so that's the best, but it's not as practical. I used to use glass back in the day, smashed probably more than 50 glass bottles. So I tend to use stainless steel now. They're pretty easy and practical, and they're highly available. I know that Frank Greens have got a big marketing campaign, and you know, my wife and daughter were drinking out of them, and I checked them one day and I looked inside and I was like, you're bloody kidding me. These bottles cost a fortune, but they've got like a Teflon liner inside them. They're not even stainless steel. So they're just as bad. That Teflon leaches, you know, the xenoestrogens as well. So it's just a marketing gimmick. So make sure you get a good quality one that's actually real stainless steel. So yeah, look, that's the end of the presentation. Hopefully that gave you a bit of a better understanding of hydration and the importance of it, and just gave you a little bit of an extra nudge to make sure to prioritize this. It's such an easy thing that you can do, and it's such a game changer to so many different things in your body. It will help your body function so much better. My general recommendation to keep it simple these days, I used to have fancy equations to work it out based on your weight and everything. I'd say 2+ liters a day, give or take. So if it's hot, you're sweating a lot, you might have more than the 2. If it's winter and it's colder, try and keep around 2 as a minimum.